Lovely to see you. Welcome to my front garden on this glorious day. Let me turn the camera around. Where is the camera around thing? Oh, there it is. Okay, so here it is. I wasn't kidding when I said it's beautiful. Unfortunately, the neighbour has got music that's a bit bangy and that's distracting, so I'm not going to stay out here for the whole time. Besides, I have to go inside because I got my little notepad to tell you things. But I just want to show you the beautiful things. I know I show you this every week, but that's because I love it so much. Look at the flowers. And in case you wonder why I'm blithering on about flowers and gardens, my name, turning the camera around, is Oneness Evolving. And I come out here and I show off my garden, or if it's raining cats and dogs, I talk about crystals and things, because this is a Facebook Live. And if you're watching on YouTube, this is why I'm doing this. It takes a little while for the live to show up in Facebook, and then my husband shares it out for me. So while I'm waiting for that to start happening, because I know there are some people who like to come on and join me and have a conversation, I do this. And besides, it's beautiful out here. So let me show you. The leaves on the magnolia are starting to turn. Hello, beautiful being, I can see you're on. Look at these colours. I just never really get tired of that. And yes, the neighbour is accompanying us on the drums. They practice the drums. They're really pretty decent neighbours. Oh, look. Something's happening to my kawa tree. It might just be getting a bit old. That's okay. I'll plant something else in there. And look, we've got a fern. Hello, Muktananda. I hope you're enjoying this view of my front garden. This is a native New Zealand fern, and it's commonly called the hen and chicken fern. You see the little babies on it. What happens is these fronds get old and they fall down, and then the little babies get to be on the ground and they grow. And that's how this one spreads. So I'm just really rather fond of it. It's beautiful, and it's big. So there it is. And what else have I got to show you? It's a pretty quiet time of year. It's not, there's weeds, because it's a garden, right? It's never perfect. But there's not an awful lot else to show you. I'm just going to walk over here and show you this because it's so bright. So this is calendula, and I just love these bright yellow flowers. They're edible. I grow this plant for the flowers so I can pick them and eat them. And you see there's a new one coming up here. I do scatter seeds around because I want it to keep coming. And it's just gorgeous. See, this is the seed head. I pick most of them off because I don't actually want an invasion. But look at it, isn't it cool? All right, I'm going inside now. Start talking about what I've been writing this morning for my God of Me project. God of Me is going to be a website, which it really does explain some of the really basic, simple science about how it is that we get to think the way we think and feel the way we feel, and how we might be able to actually change it. Because I didn't know, for a lot of my life, I didn't know that it was possible if you just feel bad all the time. I didn't understand how that worked. I didn't understand why I felt bad a lot of the time. And in fact, I didn't even know that I did feel bad a lot of the time. I just knew that I did. Excuse me, I've got to straighten the camera up here. Get myself organised. So I'm writing words for this website, and I get to do that one Wednesday morning every week, and so that's what I've been doing, and now I'm here and giving you the update on what I've been doing. So today, it's all about the brain, right? Which is why I wrote the words on this video that I did, because the way we think and feel is really clearly reflected in what the brain does, the brain's activity. And one way that the brain can be measured is with a thing called an electroencephalogram, or an EEG. Hello, beautiful beings. Lovely to having you jump on. And so, it's you, Mary. Hello. And so in my writing, like I know I talked last week about what an EEG is. And, you know, you have it looks like there's these little dots all over a person's head. And they're little electrodes, little metal discs that are attached temporarily to the scalp, and then there's a wire comes off them, and so they end up with this big, like a horse's tail off the back of their head. All these wires. The wires go to a computerized device that takes all the information that's recorded about the brain's activity and sticks it on a screen, and that's an EEG, and you record it for a length of time. And when you print out or you view on screen all the information that it records, hi Augusta. That's an EEG, electroencephalogram. So I talked a lot about that last week. And this week when I started writing, I just went back over what I'd written, and it was pretty good. I tweaked a few things, and but that was okay. And so the next piece that I wanted to explain, which is directly related to how we feel, but because I want to be able to explain brainwaves, right? Our brains, that they don't do the same stuff all the time. But what are brainwaves, and what's that got to do with an EEG, and what does an EEG show, and how do I get from EEG to brainwaves? Particularly if I'm assuming that whoever is looking at this information knows nothing, right? Let's just go back to basics. So what I did was I found these two charts of really simple electroencephalogram strip charts. It's about 5-second clip, each one of them. Found them on Wikimedia Commons, which means I can use them. I don't have to pay anybody, which is nice. And they show two different brain states. And I'm not going to talk about what they are yet, but one of them, you can see there are these peaks and troughs, the little wavy, like sine waves. There's 8 different channels that the brain's been measured on, so that means there's 8 electrodes. It's only very small. I saw one that I was looking, it's got 62 electrodes on it. So an EEG, I think this picture's quite old, but it's useful because it is simple. So I have these two things, and one of them is with an EEG, you get the different channels of which part of the brain's being measured, and then across the top you have, well, this is 1 second, this is 2 seconds, 3 seconds, so you can see what the brain is doing over time because it's recorded for a period of time. And so in this first one, you can see, if you go, where's a second, that in between this part and this part, there's a second. There are 9 little ups and downs. The wave goes up and down 9 times. And then on the other one, I had to really look because it's not a very high resolution picture. And I could count 19. So the brain is going faster, right? There's more up and down happening in 1 second. And so then it's like, obviously something different is going on. What is it? And so we know that the brain is working slower or faster, depending on how fast, how many wiggles there are. And so this is leading me to be able to explain that there are 5 kinds of brain waves. And depending on which kind of brainwave state you're in, is going to affect how you feel. I'm just getting the clock so I don't run out of time. So I had to explain, well, what are those wiggles? And then I had to go to the internet and think, well, what actually is a wiggle? Is it, one neuron firing and it makes a wiggle? And I don't really, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not really clear about this. But what I did find is that when we fire a thought, it's never just one neuron. There's a neural net that fires, and the electricity goes through the neural net, and it makes an electrical wave. It's a wave-like pattern of electricity, which is what the EEG measures. And so when you're thinking a few thoughts, well, then you make a few of those wave-like patterns. And when you're thinking a lot of thoughts, you make lots of them. And so what makes the difference, right? And I was scratching my head to try and figure out how to describe this without getting into too much detail. And that was what I ended up talking about, was wave-like electrical patterns. And, each time you have a wiggle, that means there's been one of those wave-like electrical patterns. And in the 2 pictures that I had of these 5-second chunks of strip chart, one of them you could count 9 and the other one you count 19. Well, that brain's working faster. What's that about? And so the next thing that I wanted to explain, and am still working on explaining because this is where I got to today, is this concept of frequency. And then I looked up, well, what is frequency? What's the definition? And it really is about, here's a period of time and how often something happens in that period of time. Or if you have a bucket of rocks, for example, how many of them are, if you have 100 rocks, how many of them are white? That's a frequency, 10 rocks per 100. So just explaining these really basic concepts, because what happens once you understand, okay, brain waves are measured in cycles per second, right? 9 cycles per second or 19 cycles per second. Actually, our brain waves can go from 0.5 cycles per second all the way up to 50 or more. So it's quite a wide range, really, really slow. So that's 0.5 to 4 cycles a second. I know I talked about this last week. That's delta. You're asleep. And that's why babies, when they're born for the first 2 years, they're asleep with their eyes open, because their brain, if you do a little an electroencephalogram of a baby, it's in delta. This is, 4 cycles a second at the most, really slow. And then the next frequency range, see, I can talk about that word now, is 4 cycles a second to 8 cycles a second. That's theta. And last week I was talking about the fact that most of us, between the ages of 2 and 5, we're in theta. And theta is those 4 cycles a second to 8 cycles a second. The brain's going a bit faster. And that's because there's more information coming in through the senses to the child. A baby is sort of not very much aware of much except mum, and the need to eat and, and be comfortable. But when the brain starts to pick up, because the child is having more experiences, the brain goes from delta, so they're asleep with their eyes open, to being more awake, and they're in theta, and theta is the hypnotic state. And that is how we learn how to be human in the space of about 5 years, because there's way too much to actually learn it like you go to school. You just absorb it like an operating system. So that's theta, 4 to 8 cycles a second. See, it makes sense when you understand that a cycle is a wiggle, and there's these pictures, right? And, there's a line, and then the thing goes up and down and up and down. And sometimes it's a big up and down, sometimes it's smaller. But you can count the peaks and troughs, and that shows you the frequency. And I haven't even talked about the fact that one of these things is showing really nice alpha pattern. And alpha is the next thing. So 8 cycles a second to 12 cycles a second. That's alpha. And that's when you're sitting and you're relaxed and you're kind of chilled out and you're thinking and, you're watching the sunset, or you're just imagining or remembering, whatever. But basically your inside experience and the thoughts that you're thinking inside your own mind are more real to you than what's outside. There's nobody out there talking to you or teaching you something or asking you to do something. There's no task in front of you that you are focusing on doing. You're just focused inside yourself, or you're not focused at all. You're just chilled out. But your brain is working a bit faster than when you're in theta. And alpha, from about the ages of 7 to 12, most of us are in alpha. That's why kids are so imaginative, because alpha is the imaginative state. And so you can think, when you're in theta, the other thing about theta is you're between sleep and awake. You're right where a hypnotist wants someone to be if they want to reprogram them to make better choices in life. It's the hypnotic state. The information just goes straight in. There is no thinking, analytical mind that can say, no, I disagree with that. No, thank you. It's not there. And that's why everything just goes in. We talked about that last week. That's theta. Alpha, there starts to be a critical mind. And that's when kids, they start asking, oh, why is it like that? And how does this work? And they're putting things together. And they, the classic one is they realize that Santa doesn't exist, and nor does the Easter Bunny. But they still like the chocolate or the presents or whatever it is that you do at that time of the year. So the mind, the rational, analytical mind, is starting to form while the child is between sort of 7 and 12 years, or maybe later, it depends how imaginative they are. They're in alpha, 4 to 8 cycles a second. 8 to 12 cycles a second. And then beta is from 12 to about, 20, 30 something. There's argument about where the ranges begin and end, and after that there's gamma. And beta, you, by the way, I promised I'd tell you, you are in low beta right now, Because I am talking to you and you are focusing on your phone or your screen or whatever you're doing. You're listening to me. So you are receiving information from outside yourself. You're not imagining what you're making for dinner tonight, unless you're really bored already. And you're not thinking about what happened yesterday or what you're doing tomorrow. You're focused on information that I'm providing you. So you're in low beta. And the reason I know you're in low beta, or you might be in moderate beta, we'll get to that in a minute. Low beta is, I think, 12 to sort of 15 cycles a second. The brain is just, it's going a bit faster than alpha. And because you're outwardly focused, your brain has to process the sensory information. And more than that, you're thinking about the stuff I'm telling you, and you think, oh, is that really? Do I agree with that? Do I think that's true? Oh, does that apply to me? Do I remember something like that for myself? This is what happens. Hi, Mike. This is what happens when we are in beta. We're thinking about stuff and observing things and doing stuff and whatever. And it's low beta, and probably that's where you're at. You might also be in mid-range beta. In mid-range beta, the brain is going faster, and there's about 15 to 18 or 20 cycles per second. I'm going to look it up. I've forgotten. Because I didn't look that up today because I wasn't writing about it. And mid-range beta is when it's like, if I said to you, okay, before you can put down your phone or stop watching, you have to pass a little exam. You have to pass a quiz. So you better pay really good attention. You better take notes. You better think harder because you can't stop until, whatever. It's like there's a little, you're not worried because you know that you're listening and you'll work it out and the questions probably won't be too hard. But, you perk up. The brain gets busier. It's like, oh, I'm focused now. Another example would be if you are going to go and do a performance on stage and you have a little stage fright, you're nervous, but you're not freaked out. You just, oh, I'm kind of pumped. That's if you like, that's good stress. High beta is when it's like you are going to do a performance and you are freaking out. Stress. It's like there's a tiger in the room. Or somebody that you find scary or you really get angry just at the thought of them walks into the room and you go, "Rrr!" Even if you don't do anything, but you feel like you just, you are ready to fight, to run, or to hide. Or that's high beta. Now your brain is disorganized and you can't think. And that's because the blood flow is gone from your frontal cortex, the part that actually makes rational decision, and that all the thinking part of your brain is pretty much shut down, and where the blood flow is going is to the center of your brain, your emotional brain, your chemical brain, and that's pumping out adrenaline, well, telling your adrenal glands to pump out adrenaline, and your habit brain, which looks after all the habitual things that we've, for millennia has helped humans to stay alive. And those are the brains that are working. So you are just now pretty much behaving like a big animal that's in a corner, and you've got a big brain, but that brain is mostly turned off. So you can see the connection between how we feel and how fast your brain is working. And it's really direct. And the thing that I didn't understand for, 53 years, I didn't even begin to understand until I realized, hang on a minute, because I connected with the work and the books and the learning and the understanding, what I've learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza, is that, my brain changes according to what I'm doing and how I'm feeling and everything else. But I did not know that it was possible for me to change my brain, how it was working, and then I could feel different. I didn't understand that. And that's what I want to explain. That's why I'm taking the time, making the effort to write these words for this website that's going to be godofme.live. That's what it is. That's the domain. I've already bought that. I've also got godofme.life because we decided I'd better have both. That's what I'm building. That's what it's about, because I want people to understand, and somehow, and I don't know how it's going to happen, I want this information to be available for people who have no money, because there are a lot of people in the world who have no money at all, and they need to learn how to change, that they can change, and how to do it themselves. And so that's my dream, that's my vision. And at the moment I'm thinking, well, that's all too big. and it's fine. It's like, it's way bigger than me. It's more than I know how to do. But I do know how to write the words for this website. And my husband is drawing pictures. And if you go to the God of Me link in the bottom of this video, just go and have a look at the pictures he's drawing. They're really cool. They explain things. And so this is just a process at the moment of developing content for a website. Once we have the content, and there's a lot of it to do, and it's, I'm not even thinking that far, because there's just way more to do than I have even got to think about. But there, at some point, there will be a website, and there will be exercises, and it'll be a learning experience, and people will be able to follow a learning path through from beginning to end. Not that it'll ever end, because I'm sure I'll always be adding to it. And most importantly, I'll be developing exercises that they can actually use to help themselves change. And not just sitting and, with their phone, because I'm going to make sure that it's because the poorest people in the world, if they have anything, they have a phone. They may not have a house or anything else. They may not have a telephone. They might not have a landline or a computer or anything, but they probably have a phone. So I don't want them to be limited to having to turn on their phone or, wake it up and stick something in their ear and do something with that, because you can't always do that. I want to teach people what I've learned from Dr. Joe, how to self-regulate in the moment. And that doesn't mean that I always manage to do it. I don't. But at least I know that I can. And when I fall flat on my face, I learn from that too. So that's a little bit about the God of Me project. Thank you for joining in and watching and participating and thinking and being in low beta with me today. I thought to myself, well, this isn't terribly world-shattering. Perhaps it's not very exciting, but I find it cool information and I like sharing it with you. And if you want to be in touch with the next weekly update, then please do like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, I would really appreciate that. And by all means, go and check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support the project, there are bonuses for being my patron. So thank you for joining in. I look forward to doing this again next week to keep on writing about brainwaves and explaining them really simply and making this information accessible to people like you and me. Lots of love. Until then, bye now.